For 2 years of our marriage, my sister-in-law and her husband showed up at my front door every single day like clockwork. The premium dry-aged steaks and top-shelf imported liquors I bought with my own hard-earned money vanished down their throats as if they were tearing into their own personal care packages. While I sweated in the kitchen preparing a massive feast, they would sprawl out on my leather sofa, mindlessly scrolling through their phones, just waiting to be served. After every meal, my brother-in-law would shamelessly pack the leftover premium fruits into plastic grocery bags, flashing a greasy smile. "Thanks for the meal, Jessica," I complained to my husband countless times. But his response was always exactly the same. "Come on, we are all family. Just throw 2 extra portions in the pot, it's not a big deal." Then came that one specific night. I had just finished a brutal overtime shift. I dragged my exhausted body through the front door, only to find my brother-in-law loudly eating the expensive artisanal truffles and artisan cheeses I had bought for myself. He looked at me with a sickening grin and asked, "So, Jessica, what's for dinner tonight? Thanks to you, we are saving so much on groceries. We are really living the dream." "Ha, make sure you stock up on some more prime ribeyes for tomorrow." Sitting right next to him, my husband chuckled and nodded in agreement. I looked right back at them and smiled. "Sure. I will make sure tomorrow night is an absolute feast." The next evening, when those two freeloaders eagerly tried to push open my front door after work, they made a shocking discovery. The heavy-duty smart lock had been completely ripped out of the door. Before we dive deep into this story, please hit that subscribe and like button. Let me know in the comments where you are listening to this podcast right now. I wish happiness and peace to wherever you are. Now, sit back, relax, and listen closely to my story. Late autumn in Chicago always brings a biting, bone-chilling wind off Lake Michigan. A few dried, brittle leaves from the sycamore trees blew across the pavement, brushing against the toe of Jessica's designer heels as she stood before her luxury high-rise condo building in the Gold Coast neighborhood. As she pushed through the lobby doors, a cheerful electronic chime echoed from the elevators. The hallway motion sensors flickered to life, casting a warm golden glow over the sleek marble floors. 2 years ago, when Jessica signed the luxury lease agreement for this premium penthouse condo, she truly believed that the space behind her front door would become the perfect, flawless sanctuary she had always dreamed of. She had put down a massive $150,000 to cover the security deposit and a full year of prepaid rent for the penthouse unit. That money was her entire life savings, scraped together by working her fingers to the bone for 8 years to climb the corporate ladder and become the marketing director at a massive multinational tech firm. On the day she wired that massive sum to the property management company, her husband, Michael, stood behind her, wringing his hands. He watched her make the transfer with a look that was equal parts awe and guilt. "Jessica, I am so sorry. My family doesn't have a lot of money, and I couldn't even help you with the massive deposit for this place. I promise I will treat you twice as well to make up for it. I will take care of all the utility bills, the expensive HOA fees, and our monthly groceries. Don't worry about a thing." Back then, Michael's tone seemed so utterly sincere that she could not possibly doubt him. Jessica believed him. She was a woman who valued efficiency and results, not just in her corporate life, but in her marriage as well. Since she had made the choice to marry him, she did not mind carrying a heavier financial burden. She completely overhauled the condo. She hired high-end interior designers, custom-ordered a genuine Italian leather sectional, and bought a state-of-the-art Samsung smart refrigerator, a premium LG wash tower, and a top-of-the-line Sony surround sound system. She even spent hours comparing specs to buy an ultra-luxurious smart bidet for the master bath. She turned the empty space into a perfect, flawless nest. Every square inch of the condo was infused with her affection and her concrete plans for their future. About 3 months into their marriage, Michael's younger sister, Hannah, tied the knot. Hannah had been babied and spoiled rotten her entire life, completely lacking in maturity. Her new husband, Hunter, was a boastful, arrogant man with absolutely zero money to his name. The moment the newlyweds returned from their honeymoon in Cancun, Michael's parents hit the roof. They found out the young couple had completely maxed out their credit cards buying designer bags and luxury watches. Furious, her parents instantly cut off every single cent of financial support. That weekend, Michael spent over 30 minutes pacing the living room on the phone with his sister. Even through the closed door of the home office, where Jessica was reviewing quarterly financial reports, she could hear Hannah wailing and sobbing dramatically through the phone speaker. After hanging up, Michael hesitantly approached Jessica as she was organizing her closet. "Is something wrong?" Jessica stopped what she was doing and looked at her husband. "Hannah and Hunter are in a really tight spot financially right now. My parents completely froze their credit cards." Michael let out a heavy sigh and wrapped his arms around Jessica's shoulders. "Jessica, my little sister has never experienced real hardship in her life. Now she is saying they can barely afford a decent meal. I was thinking, we cook dinner at home every night anyway, right? What if we just tell them they can swing by our place for dinner every once in a while? We just need to add 2 extra plates to the table." Jessica's brow furrowed slightly. She absolutely despised having her private after-work sanctuary invaded. How often is every once in a while exactly? Just on the weekends. I swear I will never let them ruin our weekday routine. Michael held up 3 fingers in a solemn Boy Scout pledge. "She is married now, so she needs to learn how to be independent. But I am her older brother. I can't just sit back and watch them starve, right?" Looking at her husband's desperate, pleading eyes, Jessica's heart eventually softened. They were family, after all. If the newlyweds were struggling, helping them out once in a while felt like the decent thing to do. She also saw it as an olive branch, a way to show her goodwill and integrate into her new in-laws' family. "Fine. They can come over on weekends. But you need to tell me in advance so I can buy groceries and prep the ingredients." "Wow, you are seriously the best wife in the world. I knew you would understand." Michael practically jumped with joy and planted a loud kiss on her cheek. To welcome her sister-in-law and her husband for their first official visit, Jessica purposefully stopped by Whole Foods after work that Friday. Pushing her cart, she meticulously selected the finest ingredients. She picked up 2 massive, dry-aged prime tomahawk steaks at $150 apiece. She added wild-caught Alaskan king salmon to the cart. She topped it off with organic Rainier cherries and premium California cotton candy grapes. By the time she checked out, the total on the monitor read nearly $400. Jessica carried the heavy grocery bags back to the condo, still wearing her stilettos. Without even taking off her corporate suit, she threw on an apron and marched straight into the kitchen. She sliced, marinated, and cooked nonstop for 2 solid hours over the roaring sound of the exhaust hood. At exactly 7 in the evening, the doorbell rang. Michael sprinted out in his socks to open the door. "Wow, it smells absolutely amazing in here." Without even taking off her shoes, Hannah poked her head toward the dining room. She was wearing a brand new designer trench coat and carrying an empty, oversized tote bag. Hunter followed right behind her, rubbing his hands together with a greasy smirk. "Thanks for the hard work, Jessica." Hannah rushed over to the dining table, her eyes widening at the lavish spread of premium steaks and sizzling salmon. She immediately whipped out her iPhone. "Oh my God, this is literally fine dining level. I need to take a picture and send this to Mom and Dad." Flash after flash went off. Jessica walked out carrying a pot of rich seafood bisque and smiled. "Go wash your hands and eat. It is just a simple home-cooked meal. Are you kidding me? How is this a simple home-cooked meal?" Hunter pulled out a chair, dropped into it, and without an ounce of shame, stabbed the largest piece of prime steak and shoved it into his mouth. After barely chewing, his eyes went wide. "The quality of this meat is insane. Jessica, these steaks are like over $100 a pop at the butcher, right? We can never afford this outside." "If you like it, please eat as much as you want," Jessica replied politely. At the table, Hannah and Hunter's forks moved like lightning. The 2 massive tomahawks and more than half the salmon went straight down their throats. After the meal, Hannah sprawled out on the couch, patting her full stomach. Meanwhile, Hunter naturally reached for the imported grapes on the coffee table, tossing them into his mouth one by one. Sitting next to them, Michael started a FaceTime call with his parents, purposely turning on the speakerphone. "Mom, don't worry. Hannah is eating like royalty over here. Jessica went all out today and bought premium steaks and wild-caught salmon just for them. My wife really knows how to treat her family. She is so generous." He panned the phone camera over the dining table, showing the completely empty plates. Through the phone, her parents showered her with praise. Oh, Jessica, you worked so hard. Hannah is so incredibly lucky to have a sister-in-law like you. Hannah shoved her face into the camera frame, flashing a massive smile and linking her arm through Jessica's. My sister-in-law is the absolute best. I am just going to glue myself to her house every single weekend. Jessica stood there, her lower back and shoulders aching terribly, but hearing the praise from her in-laws and husband made her feel a sense of pride. She truly believed her dedication was being fully embraced by this family. As they were leaving, Hunter smiled cheerfully and began stuffing the leftover half bunch of imported grapes and several premium apples into the empty tote bag they had brought. Jessica, these fruits are incredibly sweet. I'm just going to take the leftovers so I can have them for breakfast tomorrow. Jessica froze for a split second, but then nodded. Sure, take them. For the first month, Hannah and Hunter actually stuck to the agreement and only visited on weekends. To fulfill her duties as the sister-in-law, Jessica prepared a feast so massive the table legs would nearly snap every time they came. But she had vastly underestimated human greed. After half a year, everything changed. Occasional weekends seamlessly morphed into frequent weekdays. Eventually, it devolved into a shameless daily routine where they actively leached off her household. In the beginning, Hannah would at least send a text message to give a heads up. One Wednesday afternoon at 3 o'clock, while Jessica was leading a massive departmental meeting, her phone screen lit up. It was Hannah. Hey Jessica, what's for dinner tonight? Hunter didn't get full last night, so he is craving a massive seafood boil and dry-aged Wagyu ribeyes today. Can you stop by Whole Foods and pick up some meat on your way home? Jessica stared at the message, her brow furrowing deeply. She quickly typed back. My meeting is running late today. I have to work overtime. I have zero time to grocery shop or cook. Less than 5 minutes later, Michael called her. Jessica stepped out of the conference room to answer. Jessica, Hannah says she really wants short ribs, Michael said, his voice dripping with pathetic flattery. The thing is, they are already on the L train heading to our condo. I can't just tell them to starve and wait in the freezing cold lobby, right? Can you just run to the store after work and whip something up real quick? Michael, I literally have to work late tonight, Jessica hissed, forcing down her boiling anger. Come on, it just takes 30 minutes. They just started out. They have no money. If they eat out, it will cost them a fortune. Just do me this one solid favor. Please. That night, dragging her exhausted body, Jessica hauled heavy grocery bags through the biting wind tunnels of her Gold Coast neighborhood. When she finally walked through her door, the only greeting she received was from two people slumped on her couch, playing mobile games, casually tossing out a soulless, "Thanks for the hard work, Jessica." As time went on, Hannah stopped sending texts altogether. They treated Jessica's home like an all-you-can-eat free soup kitchen. One day, Jessica had to pull 2 all-nighters in a row to finalize a quarterly report. Before heading to the office, she made Michael swear to handle the situation. I am dead on my feet today. I am not cooking tonight. You need to call Hannah and explicitly tell her not to come over. Michael pounded his chest, guaranteeing he would handle it. But at 8 o'clock that night, when a drained Jessica opened her front door, she heard a chaotic banging and crashing coming from her kitchen. She walked over to find Hunter with the freezer door wide open, aggressively digging through her frozen premium shrimp and an expensive organic heritage chicken she had specifically saved for a weekend soup. Hannah was standing right next to him, loudly drinking straight from a $400 bottle of vintage Napa Valley Cabernet Jessica had received as a corporate gift. Oh, you are home, Hannah mumbled, her mouth smeared with expensive chocolate, without a single trace of apology. Michael said you weren't cooking tonight, so we decided to just figure it out ourselves. But seriously, why is there only raw meat in here? You don't even have a basic frozen pizza. Hunter is about to pass out from hunger. Jessica stared blankly at the disaster zone that used to be her organized refrigerator. The prime steaks, 2 bags of imported cherries, and 4 bottles of cold-pressed juice she had stocked up on last week were completely gone, leaving only empty containers rolling around. Where are the steaks I bought? Jessica asked, her voice ice-cold. Oh, those. Hunter and I grilled them up for a late-night snack the day before yesterday. You never eat late at night anyway. If we just left them there, they would have gone bad, so we did you a favor and finished them off, Hannah replied, sounding obnoxiously entitled. Jessica took a deep breath, suppressing the burning rage creeping up to her throat. She knew arguing with Hannah was a waste of breath. The root of all this evil was Michael. That night, after Hannah and Hunter loudly slurped down the instant ramen, Jessica was forced to cook for them and finally left. Jessica called Michael into the home office. She did not yell. She did not scream. She calmly pulled out a chair, sat down, and pulled her iPad out of her bag. "Michael, we need to talk." Jessica's eyes were as cold as glaciers. "What is wrong, honey? Did something happen at work today?" Michael tried to diffuse the tension with a cowardly smile. Jessica unlocked the iPad and pulled up an Excel spreadsheet she had meticulously compiled. The screen displayed a sharply rising graph alongside detailed transaction logs. "This is our grocery expense for the last 15 days. Jessica slid the tablet across the desk to him. "Our normal food budget for just the two of us is about $800 a month. But in the last month alone, my credit card was charged over $3,200 at grocery stores and food delivery apps. We are only halfway through this month, and we have already spent $1,800. The cowardly smile vanished from Michael's face. His eyes began darting around the room nervously. "Ah, well, inflation is crazy right now. You buy a little meat, and boom, the bill is huge." "Inflation doesn't make a grocery bill quadruple," Jessica said, her long white finger tapping the glass screen. "The prime steaks, the wild salmon, the expensive fruit that disappears every single day. All of it is going straight into your sister and brother-in-law's stomachs. And that is not even the end of it. I found a final notice from the HOA taped to our door today. The utilities and HOA fees you swore up and down you would cover? They are 2 months past due. Where exactly is your paycheck going?" Michael hung his head like a guilty child, scratching the back of his neck. "Look, my department has been doing a lot of team dinners lately, and I had to cover the tab for my manager a few times. Money is just a little tight right now. If you are short on cash, fine. That happens. But if your sister and her husband are going to come here and drain our food supply every single day, the least they can do is contribute to the groceries. Paying $500 a month is basic human decency." Jessica stared a hole straight through him. $500? Are you out of your mind? Michael jumped up like a dog whose tail had been stepped on. Where would Hannah get that kind of cash? If they had $500 lying around, why would they be eating here? Are you telling my family to go sit on the curb and starve to death? If they don't have money, is it my legal obligation to feed them? Did I marry your sister? Jessica shot back. Jessica, since when did you become such a materialistic snob? Michael clutched his chest, looking at her as if she had just committed an unforgivable crime. Do you know how disgusting it is when you bring up money like this? We are family. You are a corporate director, making a massive 6-figure salary. Why are you being so stingy over a few pennies? Do we really need to be this calculating in our marriage? If we are family, does that mean they have the right to endlessly exploit my sacrifices? Ah, forget it. Forget it. Michael waved his hand in a dramatic, dismissive gesture. You just hate looking at my sister. Fine. I will cut down from 2 packs of cigarettes a week to 1 and pitch in the difference. Stop nagging me. He stormed out of the office, slamming the door shut so hard the walls shook. Jessica remained in her chair. She did not chase after him. She stared emotionlessly at the disgusting numbers on the spreadsheet, then quietly pressed the screenshot button. She saved all the financial logs and the photo of the past due HOA notice into a locked, password-protected folder named Household Expenses. She was a woman who valued concrete evidence. If Michael refused to have a rational conversation, she needed to keep flawless records for the inevitable severing of ties. Over the next few weeks, Hannah's boundary-crossing behavior became truly grotesque. At first, they only ruined the living room and kitchen. But soon, they began treating Jessica's master bedroom like a public lounge. On a Tuesday in November, Jessica was tied up in an Asia-Pacific regional conference call and could not leave the office until past 8. Braving the freezing winds, she caught an Uber and dragged herself home. Standing in front of her door, she reached out to type her passcode into the smart lock. But before her fingers even touched the screen, the door swung open from the inside. Hunter, wearing one of Michael's stretched-out old t-shirts like a rag, was holding an imported apple Jessica had bought at a high-end boutique. He took a massive bite and mumbled, "Oh, hey, Jessica. You are super late today. We were practically starving to death waiting for you." Jessica stood frozen to the floor. She stared past Hunter's shoulder into the condo. The TV volume was blasting at an ear-shattering level, playing some trashy reality show. Hannah was sprawled out flat on her back on the custom Italian leather sofa, her bare feet propped aggressively onto the glass coffee table. Around her was a literal mountain of used wet wipes and sunflower seed shells. "You are finally here? Michael told us you were working late, so we came in early to wait." There was absolutely nothing to eat in the fridge. "What are we having for dinner?" Hannah sat up and asked, acting like she owned the place. Jessica took a slow, deep breath, burying the volcanic rage inside her. "How did you get inside?" I punched in the passcode. Hannah blinked her eyes wide, feigning total innocence. "Michael gave it to us last month. He said it was getting too cold to wait in the lobby, so we should just let ourselves in." Jessica glared daggers at Michael, who was slowly shuffling out of the master bedroom. Michael nervously avoided her gaze and let out a pathetic chuckle. "Hey, honey, you are home. Look, I just felt bad seeing them shivering outside. It is just the passcode. We are all family here. No need to make a big fuss. Family." Jessica mentally chewed on that word, swallowing a bitter, cynical laugh. That night, fighting off pure exhaustion, Jessica scraped together whatever leftover vegetables were in the fridge and made a haphazard stew. Throughout the entire meal, Hannah and Hunter frowned with disgust. Hunter even mumbled with a mouthful of food, "Damn, there is literally no meat in this." After they finally stuffed their faces and waddled out the door, Jessica confronted Michael about leaking the passcode. Michael spewed his usual garbage about how families don't keep secrets and accused her of being rigid and entirely unreasonable. That weekend, while Jessica was in the office clearing out her emails, she heard rustling coming from the master bedroom. She pushed the door open to find Hannah sitting firmly at Jessica's vanity. Hannah was forcefully digging her fingers into a $350 jar of La Mer luxury face cream, smearing thick globs of it all over her face. "Jessica, this cream is incredible. It is way more hydrating than the cheap crap I use," Hannah babbled to the mirror, completely ignoring Jessica's murderous expression. "That is my personal property," Jessica snapped, her voice like ice. "Oh, come on. Using a little bit is not going to empty the jar. You literally have hundreds of bottles of skincare. You can't even share a little with your sister-in-law?" Hannah stuck out her bottom lip, slammed the luxury cream down on the counter, and then threw open the doors to Jessica's closet. "Oh my God, this Max Mara coat is gorgeous. Jessica, I have a college reunion tomorrow. I am just going to borrow this for one day." Before she even finished speaking, she had yanked the $1,000 coat off the hanger and was holding it up to her body. "Absolutely not." Jessica marched over, snatched the coat right out of Hannah's hands. "I despise people wearing my clothes." Instantly, Hannah's eyes welled up with tears. She stomped her feet and sprinted out of the bedroom. "Michael, look at her. She is so incredibly petty. It is just a coat. Why is she humiliating me over borrowing a coat?" Michael came running from the living room, his face twisting into an ugly scowl when he saw the coat in Jessica's hands. "Jessica, what is the big deal about letting her borrow it for one day? If it gets dirty, I will pay for the dry cleaning. Just give it to her." "No means no." Jessica shoved the coat deep into the back of her closet. "And from now on, do not ever walk into my bedroom without my permission." That night, Hannah cried massive crocodile tears as Hunter dragged her out the front door. Michael threw a massive tantrum, initiating a cold war and refusing to speak to Jessica for 3 days. Jessica thought this explosive clash would finally make Hannah back off. She was completely wrong. By the end of the month, things took a turn for the bizarre. When Jessica went to the utility room to grab laundry detergent, she noticed a massive bulk box of premium German laundry pods she had ordered was entirely gone. And that was not all. The brand new $1,000 Wusthof knife set she had treated herself to had completely vanished from the kitchen counter. She interrogated Michael. His eyes darted everywhere as he babbled his excuses. "Ah, well, Hannah said they ran out of laundry soap, so I told her to take some. And the knives. Well, you just bought new ones, and they didn't even have a decent kitchen knife at their place, so I just gave them the set. You barely even cook with all of them anyway." Jessica was so flabbergasted her fingertips started shaking. "Michael, What you just did is literal theft. You stole from me. How can you say something so cruel? Theft? Giving my own sister some stuff from my own house is theft? Michael raised his voice, refusing to back down. You are hunting me down like a criminal over a few boxes of soap and some chunks of scrap metal. Does that make you feel good? That chunk of scrap metal cost me over $1,000. All right, fine. I will just pay you back, okay? Michael yanked his phone out of his pocket, posturing as if he was about to wire her the money right that second. Jessica crossed her arms and stared down at him with freezing contempt. Great. Send it right now. Include the $3,000 grocery overage from this month. Wire it all to my account. Michael's fingers froze over his phone screen. His face turned beet red. His take-home pay was a measly $3,800 a month. After taxes, he barely had any spending money. Jessica, do you really have to be this calculating? Are we seriously doing this? You swore you would pay the utilities and HOA fees. Have you paid a single dime in the last 2 months? I covered every single missed payment with my own money. Where the hell is your entire paycheck going? Michael stood there like a mute, his head hung low, unable to utter a single word. The next morning, while Michael was in the shower, Jessica noticed his phone sitting on the living room table. The screen was still on. It was unlocked. Almost instinctively, Jessica picked it up and tapped his mobile banking app. The transaction history for the last 6 months loaded perfectly on the screen. On the 10th of every single month, Michael had been transferring money to an account under the name Hannah, 2 separate transactions. One was for $300, labeled monthly allowance. The second was for $700, labeled sister's rent assistance. $1,000 a month for 6 straight months. He never missed a single payment. Jessica stared at the numbers, feeling the blood rush violently to her head. $1,000 a month. That was $6,000 over half a year. This pathetic man, who only brought home $3,800 a month, was secretly funneling his money to his fully grown, married sister. Meanwhile, he abandoned his promise to pay the household bills, dumping the entire financial burden onto his wife. He was not just using her as an unpaid maid, he was treating her like his personal, unlimited ATM. The shower stopped running. Jessica quietly placed the phone exactly where she found it. She took a deep breath, letting the raging fire in her chest cool into pure, freezing ice. That night, Jessica sat up in bed, watching Michael walk out of the bathroom, toweling his hair. Michael, we need to talk about Hannah. Michael's hands stopped moving. He let out an annoyed groan. Ugh, what now? Them coming over every day for dinner. It is destroying our privacy, and the grocery bills are out of control. Jessica's voice was flat, utterly void of emotion. If they absolutely insist on coming here every day, fine. But they need to pay $1,000 a month for groceries. Michael stared blankly for a second before his face contorted into pure rage. $1,000? Are you completely insane? Where would Hannah get that kind of money? Are you trying to force my family out onto the streets to die? If they don't have money, is it my job to feed them? Am I married to them? Jessica countered, her voice like absolute zero. Do you know how disgusting you sound when you talk about money? Jessica, when did you become such a cold-blooded, heartless monster? Michael beat his chest, screaming as if he was the ultimate victim. Family helps each other out when things are tough. That is just how life works. Help each other out? Name one single time they have helped us. Oh, right, they helped clear out every ounce of premium beef in my freezer. You really are, Michael pointed a shaking finger at her. Completely losing his mind, but lacking the logic to formulate a real argument, he spun around, breathing heavily. Fine, I will tell Hannah. I will tell her to never come over again. Happy now? He aggressively snatched his phone off the nightstand and stomped out to the balcony. Jessica moved silently toward the balcony door. Through the thin glass, she could hear Michael deepening his voice to sound authoritative on the phone. Hey, Hannah, don't cry. Your sister-in-law is just super stressed with work right now. I think she is going through early menopause. Her temper is totally out of control. She is spewing nonsense about you only coming on weekends. Just ignore her. Whatever Hannah said back to him instantly melted his fake bravado. His tone became sickeningly sweet and submissive. Oh, come on, it's fine. You come over whenever you want. As long as your older brother is breathing, what is she going to do? Do you think I would ever let her kick you out? I will handle the money stuff. Don't even worry about it. What are you craving for dinner tomorrow? I will buy it on my way home. Standing in the shadows behind the glass door, Jessica watched the back of her husband as he stood in the freezing cold, bowing and scraping to his spoiled sister on the phone. Her heart, already frozen over, shattered into a million unfixable pieces. Everything was crystal clear now. In this household, she was the only actual stranger. Those three were the real family. The next evening, Jessica did not stop at the premium butcher or the organic market. She walked home empty-handed with light, easy steps. The moment she unlocked the front door, Hunter's obnoxious, braying laughter echoed from the living room. Man, this scotch is unreal. Where was my brother-in-law hiding this stuff? Jessica kicked off her heels and strode into the living room. Sitting perfectly centered on the coffee table were 2 bottles of ultra-rare, limited edition Macallan scotch she had bought during a business trip to Paris. One of the bottles was already uncorked. Hunter was sitting with his legs crossed, holding a crystal tumbler, swishing the $500 liquor around with a look of absolute triumph on his face. Hannah was glued to his side, tearing open a plastic clamshell of premium organic strawberries, the exact ones Jessica had bought over the weekend as a treat for herself. Michael was sunk deep into his leather recliner, giggling at a YouTube video on his phone. At the sound of Jessica's footsteps, all 3 heads snapped toward her. Hannah popped a massive strawberry into her mouth, chewing loudly. "Hey, Jessica, you are back! Why didn't you bring any groceries today?" Hunter slammed his tumbler onto the table, swallowed the strawberry in his mouth, and let out a loud, disgusting burp. He looked Jessica up and down. There was not a single shred of respect in his eyes. Instead, he looked at her with the arrogant, condescending sneer of a king addressing a peasant. "So, Jessica, what is the menu for tonight? Seriously, thanks to you, my food budget is 0. Life is good." "Ha!" He kept running his mouth, utterly shameless. "You make great money, so make sure you stock up on those prime ribeyes tomorrow, okay? Eating without meat today is really bumming me out." Jessica stood there, ramrod straight. Her grip on her leather handbag was so tight the strap dug into her palms. She did not even look at Hunter's punchable face. Instead, she turned her head and stared directly at Michael. She waited. She waited to see if this man, who called himself her husband, would step up and act as a shield when his own wife was being blatantly disrespected and mocked by his freeloader brother-in-law. Or, at the very least, if he would try to diffuse the tension. Michael paused his YouTube video. He looked up, gave Hunter a quick sideways glance, and then looked at Jessica. Jessica. His tone was casual, indifferent, like he was deciding what to order for lunch. They are just starting out in their careers. Money is tight. Just throw a couple of extra ingredients in the pan when you cook. Hunter wants steak, so just buy some meat tomorrow. Stop being so uptight with family. With those final words, he dropped his head back down and hit play on his video, not giving her a second glance. The canned laughter from the reality show on his phone echoed bizarrely through the suffocatingly silent living room. Jessica looked at the 3 human beings sitting in front of her. The brother-in-law, who naturally assumed he had the right to mock her. The sister-in-law, who mindlessly chewed on the fruit Jessica bought with her own money. And the husband who casually demanded his wife's infinite sacrifice. 2 years of effort, a $150,000 lease deposit. Countless nights coming home from a brutal corporate job only to break her back in the kitchen. All of it had been reduced to a giant, pathetic joke. Jessica did not get angry. She did not scream or throw a hysterical fit like a scorned woman in a soap opera. She did not slam the door and run away. Slowly, the corners of her mouth curled upward into a perfect arc. She smiled. It was a calm, exquisitely soft smile. "Sure," Jessica said softly. "I will make sure tonight is an absolute feast." She took off her coat, hung it up, slipped into her house shoes, and walked straight into the kitchen. She opened the fridge, pulled out a few leftover chunks of stew meat, half a bag of frozen shrimp, and every remaining vegetable. She tied her apron, fired up the gas stove, and poured oil into the pan. Sizzle. The roaring sound of the exhaust hood swallowed the obnoxious giggling coming from the living room. Jessica's hands moved like a well-oiled machine, faster and more precise than ever. 1 hour later, 4 side dishes and a massive pot of soup were placed on the dining table. "Dinner is ready," she called out calmly to the living room. Hunter practically sprinted to the table, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the meat. "Wow, Jessica, your cooking is literal art." Hannah pulled out a chair, rudely snatched the biggest, thickest piece of meat with her chopsticks, and shoved it into her mouth. Michael looked at Jessica with a deeply satisfied expression. His eyes practically screamed, "See? I told you so. You can do it when you try." It was pure, sickening arrogance. Jessica did not sit down. Instead, she poured herself a glass of room-temperature water, leaned against the kitchen island, and quietly watched them devour the food like starved animals. "I already ate at work, so take your time." When the meal was over, Hunter dug through the kitchen drawers as if he owned the place, fishing out a plastic Ziploc bag. He shoved the remaining half-box of strawberries and the completely unopened second bottle of Macallan Scotch into the bag. "Jessica, I am just going to take this bottle to sample it at home. Thanks for all your hard work today." "Get home safe," Jessica replied, offering a faint nod and a ghost of a smile. The moment the front door clicked shut, Michael let out a massive, exaggerated yawn. He walked over and patted Jessica heavily on the shoulder. "See? Isn't this great? A happy, harmonious family. Yes, it is very nice. Go to bed first. I have some work to finish up." Jessica smoothly dodged his hand, acting completely nonchalant. Michael didn't care. He walked straight into the master bedroom. Deep in the night, around midnight, the heavy sound of Michael's snoring echoed from the bedroom. Jessica was sitting in front of the computer in the home office. The cold, blue light from the monitor washed over her expressionless face. She opened the password-protected folder. Document 1. The original luxury lease agreement. Lassie, Jessica, deposit, $150,000. Document 2. A massive, categorized compilation of receipts for every single piece of furniture and appliance in the condo. From the Italian sectional to the smart toilet seat, every original receipt and credit card statement was perfectly logged. Document 3. Screenshots of Michael's banking history. The $1,000 transferred on the 10th of every month, clearly labeled allowance and rent assistance. Jessica's fingers flew across the keyboard, organizing the files, sorting them by category, and compressing them into a single zip file. Then, she logged into her company's intranet. She pulled up the Asia-Pacific executive transfer application she had drafted 3 months ago but had kept in her drafts, foolishly hoping to save her marriage. Without a single ounce of hesitation, she clicked Edit, selected the Singapore branch as her preferred location, and hit Submit. After closing the browser, her eyes drifted to the clock in the bottom right corner of the screen. 2:15 a.m. Jessica shut the laptop. A soft click echoed in the quiet office. Her hands rested gently on the cold metal surface of the laptop lid. Early the next morning, the Chicago sky was painted a dreary, oppressive gray. Dry, freezing winds battered the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse. Jessica woke up at exactly 7:00 a.m., just like she always did. She walked into the kitchen and prepared a simple breakfast of eggs and toast for two. Yawning aggressively, Michael walked out of the bedroom, pulled up a chair, and started mindlessly scrolling through his phone while chewing on his toast. "Jessica, I have to fly down to the Dallas office tomorrow. I will probably be gone for 2 or 3 days," Michael muttered, without even lifting his head. He spoke as if every convenience in this house was naturally owed to him. "I understand." Jessica picked up her mug of black coffee and took a slow sip. Her voice carried absolutely no emotion, and her eyes were as dark and still as a deep well. Before leaving for work, Michael adjusted his tie in front of the entryway mirror and confidently laid down the law. "While I am gone, make sure you cook a ton of good food when Hannah comes over. Do not start any petty fights with them. There is no point in ruining the family vibe. Do not worry." Jessica stared at him, a razor-thin smile forming on her lips. "I will handle everything perfectly." With the slam of the front door, the apartment plunged into a deathly silence. Jessica sat perfectly still at the dining table. Faint steam was still rising from her coffee mug. Suddenly, her phone screen lit up. A barrage of WhatsApp and iMessage notifications flooded in. She picked up the phone and opened the messages. It was a voice note from Hannah. Through the background noise of train announcements, Hannah's arrogant, princess-like voice blared out. "Hey, Jessica. Hunter didn't really get full last night, so he is craving spicy braised short ribs. Stop by the premium butcher early today and buy a ton of meat. Make sure it is the tender cut from the center of the rib. You know what I mean? Oh, and that La Mer cream on your vanity? I used it, and it is perfect for my skin, so I am taking the jar home today. You have a million expensive creams anyway. You won't miss one jar." Right below that, Hunter's message popped up. It was so shamelessly greedy, it was nauseating. "Jessica, that scotch last night was unbelievable. I have some buddies coming over to my place this weekend, so pack up 2 more bottles of the exact same stuff for me. Also, make sure you cook a ton of good bar food tonight and buy a mountain of prime steak. Do not be all stingy and cheap like yesterday." Ha. Finally, a message from Michael arrived as he headed to O'Hare Airport. "Jessica, heading to Dallas. My sister just got married. They are broke. When they come over, just be generous and do not humiliate them. We can talk about the grocery money later. You are the older sister-in-law, be the bigger person and yield a little." Looking at this manifesto of blood-sucking parasites on her screen, Jessica did not get angry, nor did she cry. Internally, she felt nothing but a venomous, chilling calmness, as if she were watching a circus act full of brainless clowns. Her long white fingers expertly tapped the screen, hitting the screenshot button. Click, click, click. She saved every single message to her gallery, then booted up her laptop and dragged them all into a new folder named Final Reckoning. This was the final, decisive nail in the coffin, voluntarily delivered by the parasites themselves. After securing the evidence, she picked up her phone and typed a dry, emotionless reply to Hannah. "Understood. I will have everything handled by tonight." At exactly 9:00 a.m., Jessica walked into the office of the VP of the Asia-Pacific region. "Jessica, are you absolutely sure you want me to process this transfer request now?" The VP looked at his star executive with genuine surprise. "There is an opening for the marketing director spot at the Singapore headquarters, and if you go, you can take over operations immediately. But didn't you say you needed to hold off because of family matters? That is no longer a factor." Jessica slid a signed confirmation letter across the desk. Her eyes were resolute, radiating an intensity that allowed zero room for debate. "All of my preparations are complete. I am ready to hand over my current projects immediately. I want the official transfer orders issued by this afternoon." The VP stared into her unshakable eyes, finally nodding and signing the document. "All right. I am approving your transfer immediately. HR will secure your corporate apartment in Singapore. You will fly out tomorrow on a business visa to start working out of the local office, while our legal team fast-tracks your permanent employment pass." Stepping out of the corporate tower, Jessica hailed a cab and headed straight to a prestigious, high-end family law firm in the Loop. She was greeted by a senior managing partner. Jessica did not bother with pleasantries. She sat down, unzipped her leather briefcase, and pulled out a massive stack of perfectly organized documents, spreading them across the mahogany table. "I am filing for divorce. Here is the original lease agreement for my luxury condo. The upfront deposit and prepaid rent totaled $150,000. I am the sole lessee, and the funds came entirely from my separate, premarital bank account. Next, these are the original receipts and credit card statements for every single piece of furniture, appliance, and custom fixture currently inside that apartment." Her long finger tapped the final bank statement. Her voice was as sharp as a scalpel. "This is my husband's banking history for the last 6 months. Without my knowledge or consent, he siphoned marital assets, his income directly to a third party, his sister. $1,000 a month, every month, for half a year. Meanwhile, he intentionally defaulted on his agreed-upon household utilities and HOA fees. I am filing for divorce on the grounds of irreconcilable differences. Furthermore, I want to file a formal claim for the dissipation of marital assets. He secretly funneled our shared marital income to his sister while defaulting on his agreed-upon household bills. I want every single dollar he transferred to be deducted directly from his half of any shared assets, and I want all marital debt, including the unpaid HOA fees, to be shifted entirely onto his shoulders. The elite lawyer meticulously flipped through the bulletproof evidence, his eyes lighting up with deep admiration. Jessica, the chain of evidence you have built is terrifyingly flawless. A judge will look at this and immediately recognize it as severe misappropriation of marital funds. You will not owe him a single dime in alimony. In fact, you can bleed him dry for the stolen funds, plus interest, and legally force him to cover your legal fees. I don't care if the money he owes me leaves him bankrupt, Jessica said, staring out the window at the gray Chicago skyline, her eyes gleaming with ice. My only goal is to strip him to the bone. I want him absolutely destitute, paying a devastating price for what he has done. Jessica cashed out all of her remaining PTO at work. At exactly 8:00 a.m. the next morning, 3 massive yellow moving trucks backed into the loading dock of the Gold Coast high-rise. Over a dozen professional movers in matching uniforms lined up in the penthouse lobby, carrying heavy-duty power tools and reinforced moving boxes. Jessica stood before them holding an iPad displaying the master inventory list. She cast one final, frigid look around the apartment she had once poured her heart and soul into. Then, she gave the order. Everything on this list. Tear it all out and load it onto the trucks. Do not leave a single trace. The crew moved with military precision. The deafening screech of power drills echoed through the entire penthouse. Pack the Italian leather sectional carefully. No scratches. Empty everything inside the Samsung fridge into heavy-duty trash bags and throw it in the dumpster, then cut the power and pull the unit. The LG washer-dryer, the Sony surround sound, the dining set, the German cookware. Take every single piece of freestanding furniture and appliance I purchased with my own money, Jessica instructed. Because she was the sole lessee and had the original receipts proving she purchased the interior items entirely from her separate accounts, the building management had no legal right to stop her. The building manager swallowed hard, completely crushed by the impenetrable wall of evidence and Jessica's overwhelming presence. Your preparation is incredibly thorough. Understood. There are no issues here. Apologies for the interruption, Miss Jessica. The foreman let out a massive sigh of relief, wiping the cold sweat from his neck before shouting at the top of his lungs. All right, boys, you heard the lady. Rip it all out. And one more thing. Jessica pulled out her phone and opened the Smart Lock Administration app. With a few taps, she permanently wiped Michael, Hannah, and Hunter's access codes from the system. She then walked down to the lobby and handed a formal written notice to the front desk concierge. I am the sole leaseholder of the penthouse. From this exact second, Michael and his family are permanently revoked from the approved guest and resident list. If they step foot in this lobby, call the police for trespassing. And from this moment on, record every second of the move-out process on video. For 4 solid hours, the sprawling luxury penthouse sounded like an active construction zone, filled with the shouts of movers and the whine of power tools. One by one, the luxurious items vanished like magic. By noon, the movers detached the massive Swarovski crystal chandelier from the living room ceiling and carried it to the trucks. The once blindingly gorgeous, opulent apartment was now stripped to its bones, looking like a hideous, abandoned construction site. Exposed plumbing pipes stuck out from the drywall, and a few lonely electrical outlets dotted the bare, gray walls. Every footstep echoed coldly through the massive, empty space. Jessica stood alone in the center of the dust-filled, hollow living room. She pulled a thick black Sharpie out of her purse. Crouching down, she pressed the marker hard against the rough concrete floor right in the center of the room, writing a massive, undeniable message. Hope you enjoy all the money you saved on groceries. Eat well and rot in hell. After finishing the message, she stood up, snapped the cap back on the marker, and tossed it into a leftover trash bag without a second thought. At 1:00 p.m., the landlord's agent arrived with a real estate broker. Seeing the apartment looking like a bombed-out ruin left the agent momentarily speechless. But after confirming there was no structural damage and seeing that Jessica had already paid the full cash amount for the tile and drywall repairs, the agent signed the lease termination paperwork without a single complaint. Miss Jessica, the remainder of your security deposit has been wired to your account. Please confirm. Jessica checked the bank notification popping up on her phone and gave a calm nod. Thank you for everything. As she walked out of the building's lobby doors, the brutal, biting Chicago wind slammed into her face. Jessica pulled out her phone and opened her contacts. Michael, Hannah, Hunter, her in-laws. She tossed every single one of their numbers onto her blocked list. Then, she logged into all her social media and messaging apps, permanently deleting them and blocking their accounts. Finally, she opened her banking apps and changed the phone number linked to all her financial accounts to her newly issued corporate phone from Singapore. Having completely severed all ties to her past, she grabbed the handle of her single black suitcase and hailed a cab straight to O'Hare International Airport. At 6:30 p.m., darkness blanketed the Chicago sky, and the city's neon lights began to flicker on. Hannah tightly gripped Hunter's arm as they strutted up to the penthouse door, acting arrogant and entitled, as if they were returning to their own home. Ugh! Why is it so freezing today? Whatever. I texted my brother yesterday, and Jessica texted back saying she would have everything ready. I bet my life she has a massive pot of spicy short ribs simmering on the stove, complaining about the cold. Hannah naturally reached out to swipe her hand over the sleek Samsung smart lock cover to wake up the keypad, but her fingers grasped nothing but empty air. She froze, leaning her face close to the heavy door. Where the premium high-tech smart lock was supposed to be, there was a jagged, ugly hole. Shoved into that hole was a cheap, rust-covered deadbolt that looked like it belonged on a slumlord's basement door. What is this? Where is the smart lock? Hannah let out a piercing shriek, violently pushing against the heavy steel door, but it did not budge an inch. It was locked tight. Hunter, utterly confused, suddenly lost his temper and kicked the metal door hard. Damn it. What the hell is my brother-in-law thinking? Making the door look like trash. If they changed the lock, they should have told us. And what is with this disgusting, rusty lock? I am calling Jessica right now. Hannah frantically pulled out her phone and dialed Jessica's number. The number you have reached is not in service. She's not picking up. She blocked me. Hannah's face turned as white as a sheet. Panicking, she quickly dialed her brother's number. Down in Dallas, Michael answered his phone, sounding completely bewildered. What? The lock is changed? That makes no sense. I never changed it. Jessica literally texted you yesterday saying she was cooking short ribs for you tonight. The two parasites shivered violently in the freezing hallway before Hunter finally grabbed the furious Hannah and dragged her down to the lobby to scream at the management office. Hey, the lock on my sister-in-law's door was ripped out. How the hell do you manage this building? A burglar completely destroyed the door and you guys didn't even notice? The front desk concierge looked at them with a freezing, deadpan stare, as if watching a rabid dog bark. The tenant of the penthouse, Miss Jessica, officially terminated her lease this afternoon, packed all her belongings, and vacated the premises. The unit is currently an empty, vacant property owned by the landlord. For people claiming to be family, you certainly are out of the loop. Terminated the lease? Moved out? Hannah froze, turning into a stone statue, as if she had just been struck by lightning. The two of them threw themselves on the lobby floor, throwing a massive tantrum, screaming and foaming at the mouth until the concierge finally sighed and called the landlord's agent. A few minutes later, the agent arrived, shoved the spare key into the rusty deadbolt, and twisted. With a metallic clank, the door swung open. The heavy door swung wide. There was no mouth-watering smell of braised short ribs. There was no warm, welcoming glow from the entryway sensor lights. What laid before them was a pitch-black, suffocating darkness that felt like a tomb. Hunter frantically turned on his phone flashlight and shined it around the dark room. Both of them gasped violently at the exact same time. The custom shoe closet was completely gone. The massive leather sectional that anchored the living room, the flat-screen TV, the luxurious marble dining table, everything had evaporated. Even the curtains on the windows and the crystal chandelier on the ceiling had been violently ripped down. It looked as if a team of armed robbers had stripped the penthouse to the bone. Only the chilling gray concrete walls and a layer of white dust remained. The circle of light from Hunter's phone shook wildly before finally stopping dead in the center of the empty living room floor. A single line of thick, black Sharpie text violently gouged their eyes. Hope you enjoy all the money you saved on groceries. Eat well and rot in hell. Late that night, Michael received a hysterical, screaming phone call from Hannah. Half out of his mind, he booked a last-minute, red-eye flight from Dallas, sprinting through O'Hare and taking a cab straight to the building. When he burst into the gutted, ruined penthouse, panting for breath, he was met by his sister and brother-in-law slumped on the freezing concrete floor, staring at the cursed message written in marker. In that exact moment, every drop of blood drained from Michael's body. An overwhelming, suffocating sense of despair crashed over him. He leaned against the doorframe, his legs completely giving out, and collapsed to the floor. Inside the hollow ruins of the apartment, the three parasites began to tear into each other in an unprecedented, vicious bloodbath. Michael, what the hell did you do to her to make her clear out the entire apartment and run away? Hannah screamed at the bare walls, violently tearing at her own hair. She didn't even leave a single light bulb. Hunter lunged like a wild animal, grabbing Michael by the collar. Spitting in his face, he roared with murderous rage. You swore to me you owned half this place. You told us you paid the rent and told us to come eat here whenever we wanted. Now we are getting treated like stray dogs outside a rusty lock. Are you even a man? Michael, his face completely devoid of color, shoved Hunter off him aggressively. Acting like a man possessed, he crawled frantically around the empty room, desperately searching for a single scrap of evidence that proved he was the man of the house, that he had any rights at all. But there was nothing. Not a single trace of his existence remained. Stopping his frantic crawling, his eyes caught a single piece of paper discarded in the corner of the room. Desperate for a lifeline, he crawled over on all fours and snatched it up. It was the HOA final notice he had neglected for 2 months. The late fees were printed in blood red. But on the back of the notice, Jessica had printed a chilling, itemized invoice. 1 bulk box of German laundry pods stolen by Hannah, $120. 1 set of Wusthof kitchen knives, $1,000. Marital funds embezzled by Michael to pay sister's rent, allowance, $6,000. The total sum has already been filed for full restitution in the ongoing divorce lawsuit. See you in court. Shut your mouth, you blood-sucking leeches. Michael's bloodshot eyes rolled back in his head. He waved the notice wildly, roaring at Hunter and Hannah like a wounded beast. This was the moment the sickening mask of family shattered into a million pieces. If you two parasites hadn't latched onto my wife every single day, draining her bank account and stealing her soap and kitchen knives, do you think she would have left? You two ruined my marriage. We are the parasites? Hannah foamed at the mouth, pointing her finger inches from her own brother's nose. You are the one who told us to come eat. Who handed over the passcode to the front door? You bragged about how much money your corporate wife made and how she didn't care about a few bucks. Now you are blaming us? She is right, Hunter sneered, looking at Michael like he was a piece of trash. You are a pathetic loser who couldn't even control his own wife. Do not put this on us. There is nowhere to even sit in this dust-filled dump. Let's go, Hannah. If you stay here, you will just catch fleas. From now on, do not ever treat this garbage bag like your brother. The disgusting veil of blood is thicker than water had been violently ripped away. Inside that freezing concrete box, the only sound left was the vile screaming of animals tearing at each other's throats, desperately shifting the blame. Early the next morning, Michael, having stayed up all night, marched into the lobby of Jessica's corporate headquarters with wildly bloodshot eyes. Where is Jessica? I am her husband. Bring her down here right now, he screamed, slamming both hands on the marble reception desk, barking like a cornered dog. The HR representative at the desk maintained a rigorously trained, mechanical smile, but her eyes looked at him with the cold disgust usually reserved for cockroaches. I apologize, sir, but Director Jessica has officially been transferred to our overseas headquarters. Company policy strictly prohibits us from disclosing an employee's exact location or personal information to unauthorized individuals. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived in Michael's hands. It was the divorce, asset division, and damages lawsuit filed by Jessica's elite law firm. The thick legal document was filled with terrifying, razor-sharp allegations. The husband systematically siphoned shared marital income to a third party without the spouse's consent for an extended period, constituting severe financial abuse and misappropriation of assets. We demand an immediate dissolution of marriage, the total repayment of all embezzled funds, and maximum punitive damages for emotional and financial distress. Driven completely insane, Michael bounced between cheap, strip mall legal clinics before finally losing his mind and dialing the direct line of Jessica's lead attorney listed on the lawsuit. "I am Jessica's husband," Michael screamed into the phone, veins popping in his neck as he made his final, pathetic stand. "I lived in that apartment with her for 2 years. What right does she have to secretly break the lease and swallow the entire $150,000 deposit? I am countersuing her for concealing marital assets. I demand my half. I am getting my $75,000. Through the phone, the elite lawyer's voice was colder than a Chicago winter, dripping with utter mockery for the bottom feeder on the other end of the line. "Mr. Michael, please attempt to grasp basic Illinois family law before you embarrass yourself. The $150,000 deposit was paid entirely from our client's premarital, separate bank account before you were even legally married. The lease is solely in her name. Over the last 2 years, you contributed absolutely nothing to the household finances, and you intentionally defaulted on the utility bills you explicitly agreed to pay." The lawyer paused for a breath before dropping the guillotine. "But the most damning fact is that you secretly embezzled your marital income to fund your sister's lifestyle. We have already secured a court order freezing every single bank account in your name. You do not hold a single playable card. Instead of dreaming about a massive settlement, I suggest you take out a high-interest loan to cover the massive damages and legal fees you are about to owe our client. Because if you do not pay up, your name will be slapped with a permanent, devastating collections mark, and your credit will be utterly destroyed." Click. The line went dead, cutting him off with ruthless precision. The phone slipped from Michael's grip, crashing heavily onto the cold concrete floor. His legs gave out completely, and he dropped to his knees, utterly defeated. Right at that moment, loud footsteps echoed from the open hallway. The landlord's agent, flanked by the building manager and 2 massive security guards, marched into the entryway with expressionless faces. "Mr. Michael, the lease with Miss Jessica has been officially terminated and the final accounting is complete," the agent announced, his voice devoid of any mercy. "The legal right to occupy this unit has reverted to the property owner. Gather your personal belongings and vacate the premises immediately. If you are still trespassing in this unit in 5 minutes, I will have security physically drag you out and have you arrested for criminal trespassing." Looking at the intimidating security guards holding their radios, Michael finally realized the brutal truth. The luxurious high-rise he had once treated as his own personal kingdom was now throwing him out like a bag of garbage. Consumed by a bone-deep despair, he stuffed his few remaining cheap clothes into 2 beat-up duffel bags and was escorted off the property. He was forced to rent a tiny, windowless, mold-infested motel room in the distant suburbs of Illinois. After months of brutal legal battles, the court issued the final divorce decree. The judge accepted every single piece of Jessica's flawless evidence. The court ruled that Michael's long-term, unauthorized funneling of marital funds to a third party constituted severe financial abuse and was the primary cause of the marriage's collapse. The judge granted the divorce and ruled heavily in Jessica's favor regarding the dissipation of marital assets. Because the $150,000 lease deposit was legally established as originating from Jessica's premarital funds, Michael was not entitled to a single cent of it. The judge ordered that the thousands of dollars Michael funneled to his sister be offset by assigning all of the couple's accumulated credit card debt and unpaid HOA fees entirely to Michael. Unable to pay the massive lump sum, Michael was immediately sent to collections. His credit score tanked into the low 400s. His credit cards were canceled, his accounts were drained, and with a destroyed credit history, no decent company would hire him. He spent his days rotting in absolute poverty, drowning in the miserable consequences of his actions. Meanwhile, Hannah and Hunter lost their infinite free soup kitchen forever. Like defeated stray dogs with their tails between their legs, they were forced into a cramped, depressing studio apartment on the outskirts of the city. The melt-in-your-mouth prime steaks and sweet imported cherries were gone forever. Now, they had to scrape together their own pennies just to buy cheap laundry detergent and toilet paper. Crushed by the weight of actual survival and grinding poverty, the honeymoon phase shattered into a million pieces. All that remained for the broke couple was misery. Every single day was filled with screaming matches, throwing dishes, and tearing each other down. Having lost the host they leached off of, their hollow, empty marriage didn't even last 3 months before ending in a vicious, ugly divorce. Thousands of miles away, in a vibrant Southeast Asian metropolis bathed in year-round, blinding sunshine. It was a lazy, peaceful Sunday afternoon. Jessica, dressed in a relaxed, elegant linen shirt, strolled comfortably into the premium organic grocer near her luxury expatriate residence in Singapore. She slowly pushed her cart through the fresh produce aisle. She selected a tray of perfectly marbled, ultra-premium Wagyu beef. She picked up a bunch of impossibly plump, flawless imported grapes. Finally, she grabbed a bottle of her favorite vintage red wine. There were no disgusting in-laws she had to fake a smile for. There were no blood-sucking parasites trying to drain her dry. There was absolutely no exploitation, no gaslighting, and no calculating manipulation. She walked up to the register, placing the items she alone would enjoy onto the conveyor belt one by one. It was a perfect, fulfilling, absolute happiness, meant entirely for an audience of one.